And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at the newest campaign box for Dice Masters, X-Men Forever. I like the X-Men a lot. They're one of my favorite teams in the Marvel Universe, and there's a lot of cool characters. Although, incidentally, many of the characters shown in this picture are not in this box. I shouldn't say many, but at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, okay, never mind. I was correct. But whatever. It does seem odd to me. This must be a different a picture from the Marvel Universe, and they just slapped it on. There's a lot of cool characters in this box, and a lot of the X-Men characters in here. So, I mean, let's see. What do we have? We have Emma Frost, Kitty Pryde, Iceman, Cyclops, Cerebra, Hope Summers, a very, well, not a very new, but a much newer character, Wolverine. I think this is, what, the fourth Wolverine? Professor X, Mystique, Magneto, Madeline Pryor, Donald Pierce, Black Tom Cassidy, Jubilee, Kitty Pryde, Lady Deathstrike, Sebastian Shaw, and and Toad. So it's Magneto and the Hellfire Club against X-Men. This is a box which definitely promotes that it's X-Men versus bad guys. Let's take a look at what's inside. I'm not sure where this Way Out West artwork came from, but there's the basic action cards in here. There's nothing like that kind of blew my mind. And you'll notice that kind of the whole point of this is basically X-Men versus villains, right? Or X-Men versus Magneto's Legion of Evil or what have you. But there's a lot of things about affiliations here with the teamwork. You know, like +1/+1 attack defense for each of your other different dice that you share an affiliation with. I do like this and the reinforcements where you can try to draw sidekicks, and you basically pick 1, 2, or 3. Invulnerability is kind of weird. This is one of the few pictures in the comics where I know where this comes from. The Age of Apocalypse. It just seems like a weird name to use on that one. But it's interesting. It keeps your people alive. Brave Sacrifice. I think my favorite of the action cards is Whoever Assemble, which is essentially you pick an affiliation and characters of that one are free to field. And if you can't do that, hey, you prep a die from your bag. Either way, it's good, and it only costs 2. All right, let's take a look at some of the character cards. I believe in this particular set, Toad is the only character, this particular one, that has no text on it. There are some abilities in here. We have Regenerate, which is one of my favorites, that when they are KO'd, you can re-roll them. Maybe they get to come back out. Of course, for Sebastian Shaw, you have to pay a life to do it, but then again, he's 4 for a 6/6. Sabretooth is probably the best of this lot. We have Black Tom Cassidy as both fast and call out, and Attune, where when you use an action die, you'll do a damage. Madeline Pryor also has Attune. And Overcrush, which has shown up in set after set. There's actually 3 cards in this set that have Overcrush. And when Lady Deathstrike damages an opponent, you get a life. Then Madeline Pryor's come with Energy Drain, where you will spin and engage character dice down a level. Basically, she's a vampire. And Mastermind has Infiltrate, which is probably my favorite special ability of all the different ones that are in the Dice Masters universe. So now we'll just kind of go through a bunch of the different characters that are in the set. Magneto's one of the few characters that only has 2 dice. Of course, the game comes with 1 for him. But he's pretty powerful. Here you get +1 attack and defense for each active X-Men character. Now, see, again, this kind of brings home the point that so many dice in this set rely on affiliations with either the X-Men or with the bad guys here. Mystique is very much on the case of that. If you notice, she's a 1/1, but she gets powerful depending, like this one here, she gets +2 attack and defense for each different active non-Mystique character on both sides. That's really cool. She can become incredibly powerful, and this almost made my top 10 cards, except there's a very similar one. Professor X, a 1/9. I found that to be fascinating with him. All his cards have to do with sidekicks. Rachel Summers here, who's Phoenix, Marvel Gold Prestige. She changes her name all the time. Works with the X-Men. Sebastian Shaw from the Hellfire Club. When a Hellfire character dies, fielded or KO'd, you spin him up a level. Hope Summers, And Storm, more Toad. Name an affiliation. When he's active, characters that affiliation must attack each turn. That's kind of an interesting one to have as this game goes on. So some more Hope Summer cards. Cerebra, which comes to life apparently. Costs 1 less each for your different X-Men characters. So an 8/8, which costs 7, is pretty simple. But if, let's say, you have 3 other X-Men characters, now Cerebra only costs 4. That could be pretty useful to get an 8/8 out there. I like the idea, but you have to build basically a straight-up X-Men deck. Cyclop, again though, you can put all these cards in the same deck, and you can make a very powerful, just straight-up X-Men deck. Kitty Pryde, this card here called Professor Xavier's a Jerk. I like that because that's a classic thing from the comics. Can't be blocked if you attack with another X-Men character, even if it's her. And I also like the artwork on the Kitty Pryde card. Iceman, you can pick, if you damage one, they can't attack or block. Jean Grey, One Love, One Life. And Jubilee. It's good to see Jubilee in the game. When you field a character with Lightning Bolt, you do 1 damage to the other opponent. Lady Deathstrike, when she attacks alone, is +2 attack, +2 defense. Not the first time we've seen that. And then Emma Frost. Emma Frost is one of the weirder cards in the game. Is it this one here? Yeah, if you have an active X-Men character, she gets +1 attack, +1 defense. But when she's active, if you have no other non-Emma Frost X-Men character, she gains villain. So it's like she's X-Men or villain. That's good, I guess, but who cares in the long run? Well, whatever. Let me show you my 10 favorite cards. These are in absolutely and utterly no particular order. So we have Mastermind here. Before declaring blockers, you can roll 1 of your dice. If it shows an energy face, you KO it. Otherwise, you remove X attacking character dice, where X is the roll dice level. I think that's really neat. You roll the die. It's a possibility that it dies, but you could take out everyone from that level of your opponent. I think that's a cool thing. Now, granted, you might take Mastermind off the board, but you also might take off some really powerful people. Storm here, when you field, if you have an action die in your reserve pool, you re-roll a character die, and you might take them out. Very similar how both those work. Another Mastermind took my favorite. Takes no damage during combat. That's pretty neat. You have to take Mastermind out via other ways. Here's the Mystique card that I did put in. +1 attack and defense for each other character die in the field zone. So for every die on the table, she's +1/+1, which could make her extremely powerful. Professor X, whenever a sidekick is KO'd, get a life. Or gain a life. Get a life, I guess. Well, whatever. Blob, Intimidate. Now, Intimidate's here where you can take someone off the thing, but Blob can only intimidate sidekicks, but he can intimidate all of them. So if your opponent's using a ton of sidekicks, Blob is like the perfect person to take against them. Beast, when he KOs a blocking character die, do a damage. That's very simple, but for someone who costs 2, I like it. He's great for taking out sidekicks. Jubilee, when she's fielded, she just does 2 damage to a die or opponent. Great to just hit your opponent for 3. Iceman, my favorite character in the comics, but also when he takes damage during the attack step, he does 2 damage to target opponent. Very similar, both of these. You'll notice I like kind of the same things here. Storm, do 1 damage to an opponent for each action die in your reserve pool, which is great, especially if you're someone like me who likes to get the action dice. And Blob, when he's active, your opponent cannot purchase or field character dice that have a cost of 2. So if your opponent likes to field out swarms, Blob is the anti-swarm. You saw an earlier card, he was anti-sidekick. Here he's anti-swarms, a small 2-cost characters. So those are my favorite cards. Of course, that could change as time goes by. So the dice for this game look cool. They always do. They're doing better and better dice all the time. I especially like the Beasts dice and Cyclops die. I like the 2-tone dice a lot, especially when they're easy to read. So Cyclops die is probably my favorite from the set. As always, I got to make the standard disclaimer that they do not provide enough dice to use. They don't even provide enough dice to make a full team if you want to use 20 dice per side. But, well, this is what they're going to do, I guess. Of course, we have the nice case that holds everything, and we got the bags that no one uses, but they have some neat artwork on them, and the artwork from the game is pretty okay for the most part. So this set's a good set. I like Dice Masters. It would take a lot for me to not like a Dice Masters set. This, though, is, for me, a fairly forgettable one. Not for characters and dice, they look cool. But for the basic actions and the fact that this is such a self-contained box. I always like to be able to play with these and mix them all together. That's one of the whole things I like about Dice Masters. But to have so many, I mean, yes, if you want to make this really strong X-Men set, you can in here. But, well, I guess it's not a bad thing, right? And there are so many X-Men characters out there that you can easily mix them in. I mean, if you have everything, like I do, there's tons of different ways to mix these people into sets. But there was very few cards that I felt like stood out and were very unique and different. I like Dice Masters. It's one of my favorite games. But the sets are starting to feel samey. So this is almost coming across as a negative review, and I don't mean it to be that way. It's just that when I get these sets, I'm like, what unique and different thing? Like, there's some new special abilities, you know, things in here, like there's a tune, but it's like on 3 people. The only thing that's like really new across the board in this set is the fact that they all work together, but even that's not new. I've seen that in sets before. So why am I getting this set? Do I need more Wolverine and more Cyclops? I don't need more of those. The only thing I can see about this set is if you're getting into this for the first time, this is a great 2-player set to start out with the exception, of course, that there's not enough dice yet included. And I'm still not sure why that's the case across the board. But so if you're starting out, here's some cool stuff to see. Get into Dice Masters with this set, and you get to play with some of your favorite characters, both old X-Men and newer ones. That's the review. X-Men Forever. Dice Tower Judgment. Pretty cool.